Growing up, people told me that you can only be a writer on a side, it cannot be your career.
Passion is often not the cause of things, rather the effect of it. Because writing became a passion after writing for hundreds of hours, maybe even thousands. I still get to pursue my passion of being a writer, but I'm realistic of the limitations of this pursuit. If I write a great book, people will just, stand around the corner to get it. No, no one gives a shit what you do in this world. What would your 50-year-old self want you to do? And when I ask that question, it's very clear to me what the answer is. It's to always choose the right path and not the easier path.
My guest today is Soundarya Balasubramani. She grew up in Chennai, went to NIT, then Columbia, then Salesforce. On paper, the dream. In reality, a quiet knowing that she was living someone else's story. She left. She wrote a book called Admitted. Then she wrote another book called Unshackled to help immigrants. And now she is writing her first novel, a love story about a relationship between 25-year-old young woman and a 55-year-old man with a Parkinson disease. And here's the thing I really, really want to explore with her today. It's not about what she built, it's about something that she said. There were many moments when I would pause and think, how did life get so good that I get to work on something I care so much about as part of my job? It was surreal. I'm so excited to talk to her and to go a little deeper into inspirations and ideas behind this book. Let's get started. So, lot of things are present, and I'm so excited, a little bit nervous, but very, very excited that we came to this moment today.
Me too, me too. I want to ask you, what is something that'll make you less nervous? Would it make you less nervous if we dance for a bit? Just kidding. You don't have to dance.
Um, and assure us that whatever we talk about is very important. Whatever I ask is important. You know?
Oh, um, what I can say is, knowing you, I probably have spoken to you maybe 5 times so far. A few calls we've had, and then that's it, 5 times. Um, it's so rare that I meet someone who is as polymathy as I want to be. I mean, you're already a polymath. I'm still getting there myself. That anything we discuss is going to be important for me,
Yes.
definitely for the viewer as well.
Okay. Um, I want to talk about how do you have so much clarity of what you want to do? When was the first time you started? You had this idea that I am a writer. I'm already a person who loves to write. I'm just going to do it. I don't need a permission.
Hmm. When you said, how do you have so much clarity? There's a part of me that immediately recoiled, thinking, do I though? I think the truth is, I have a lot of clarity on the things I don't want to do. It's not the things I want to do, even as much as I just know that there are certain things that I'm simply not cut out for. And one of them, as it turned out, was being a corporate employee or really just working in a big company where you are making a lot of money. You have an extremely comfortable life on paper, but every day at the end of the day, I'm going to sleep thinking, what am I doing here? Why am I here? What is going on? If I measure my life at the end of the life, is this what it will add up to? And this isn't to demonize anyone who's in a corporate job. I, in fact, envy them. I envy that people can have both happiness with their career and job and stability. I want that. I just realized that I am not cut out for it. So I had that clarity within the first month of joining my or my only corporate job. The writing part came much, much, much later, I would say. I had been writing since I was very young. I think the first article was published when I was 16 or 17 on the Higgs boson particle. And a total of 0 people read that article. But since then, I've written hundreds of articles, 2 books, dozens of short books as well, just guides on different topics. Cal Newport says passion is often not the cause of things, rather the effect of it. And I definitely am a poster child for that quote because writing became a passion after writing for hundreds of hours, maybe even thousands, not before, you know? So, took a long time.
What's your first recollection of writing?
I mean, if you're asking writing anything, okay, let's say writing something outside of school, because school you have to write anyway.
Yeah.
Outside of school would be, I want to say sometime in the ages of 14, I began to write journal entries. Back then, I was using Microsoft Word documents to write my journals, and they are incorrigible. When I've seen some of them a while ago, the grammar is bad. There's incredibly high number of like typos, errors. It just looks so juvenile to me right now. But I was also a juvenile back then, so it makes sense.
But that's a growth. If you see yourself as juvenile from that time, that means you have come off like far, far way.
Well, yeah. I'm also 29 now, so it's been 15 years. I would hope that I have grown somewhat since then.
But it's interesting that you wrote in a Word document. I used to journal a lot. I started journaling around the same age or maybe a little earlier. And I have these diaries 2009, 2010, 2011. And most of them were about how's my day been and like reflections and
Yeah.
what's anticipation for tomorrow. Was it the same thing? Like what was your journal about?
I don't remember, but I want to say it was something very simple. What happened today? Oh, this person talked to me. I was so excited. Just something very innocent, I would say. Not worldly. I wasn't thinking about, ooh, how can I change the world when I grow up? It's very simple. I I just wanted to say, even right now, when I'm journaling, of course, I don't just talk about what happened in the day. I talk a lot more about my inner world when I'm journaling. I talk about, I'm feeling sad right now, and it's because of so and so reasons. And this reminds me of what my therapist said in this session. So there is a lot of interconnection that I do now in my journaling. Uh, but I just wanted to say it's still not as if I'm journaling about how to change the world, for example. It's a lot more grounded in just daily mundane activities.
Cool. It I feel so connected and um I was always curious that there is one part that you put out on social media that the world knows about you. But there must be some part, obviously, there is another part which we don't see, which nobody gets to see. And the reason I asked you for the podcast is to explore a little bit of what life was like when Soundarya was not Soundarya, when she was 14 years old, when she was exploring what she would want to become.
Uh, in high school, I just remember spending days studying in classes. And after college, after school, 7 of us friends would gather in this one space right next to the school area every single day and chit chat for hours. I don't know what we talked about, but every single day we would meet and we'd play badminton, might play volleyball, cricket. We might just sit and chat and make fun of each other, roast each other. It honestly, that's how I think kids should grow up. Thankfully, I got that when I was in high school. I think before high school, I was in a small suburb north of Chennai. I still had 3 friends that I would meet every day. So yeah, I think if and when I have a kid, that's the kind of childhood I want them to have. Is not in front of a phone playing video games. But outside, and even if you're wasting time, go waste time outside,
Yeah.
just not
So
inside.
life.
It was really idyllic in that sense. And college was a lot more challenging, I would say. Because college also was the first time I went away from home. So I did my undergrad at NIT Trichy. So it's a 6 hour train journey from Chennai. But the 6 hours could have been 600 years for me because it felt like I was in another planet. Um, NIT pushed me in a lot of ways. I joined 10 different clubs in those 4 years. I joined everything from writing clubs, three different writing clubs, to an astronomy club, a coding club, a free thought community where we talked about atheism. That's really what we did. So, like this, I was just so curious that there is a world like this out there beyond studying for IIT JEE and mains, that where you can go and learn about anything.
Yeah.
And that was really both exciting and extremely, it's too much happening all at once that your brain is trying to catch up to what's happening in your life.
When did you or how did you decide that you would go to Columbia for product management when you were in engineering school, right?
Yeah, I went to Columbia for masters in management sciences, not product management, I'd say. I became a PM later. But it was very obvious. Actually, until my third year at NIT, I was going to be a chemical engineering scientist, or I was going to pursue a PhD in energy engineering. Since I'd done 3 internships researching
That's what I did.
biofuels and such. So, really?
Yeah,
You
I
did
have a
chemical
PhD.
engineering?
I have a PhD in energy engineering.
Exactly. So, in a way, we've just had slightly different lives because I made one decision differently than you.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I would have been where you are, honestly, having a PhD and a doctor in front of my name. And instead, I don't have any of that now. Just some books. Um,
Just some books.
it's it's way less impressive to me than I guess for someone else. But I chose to not do that PhD because after my third year at NIT, I came to the US for a summer scholarship to University of Wisconsin-Madison, fully funded by Bose Foundation. For the very first time, I got to meet people incredibly smart and dedicated towards their research and craft. And I say for the very first time because I think at NIT, I was around 1,000 other students in my batch. Not everyone really cares about their work. But these 10 people that I met at UW Madison, all of us were picked carefully based on our academics, our research, our grades, etc. So being around such people itself was humbling. And I got to see how they felt about their research. I mean, if let's say you and I were friends back then, and I could see that you genuinely cared about sustainability and energy engineering, but I am just doing it because it's cool or because it's what I've been told to do, I start to see that difference. And I'm now thinking, why am I doing this? Because I don't really enjoy the work itself. I enjoy how the work is perceived by other people. And that's the first, that's the very first time I remember thinking I shouldn't be doing a PhD if I don't feel this way. But I was feeling extremely passionate for a club that I started at NIT, which was focused on sending students on volunteering programs abroad. That club meant so much more to me than my research. So that's when I realized maybe I'm better fit for a business background, a business degree, than a research degree. So I applied to Columbia and many other schools. I got into Columbia, Cornell, and Dartmouth back then. Obviously, they're all very good schools, and I chose Columbia.
One thing that is standing out to me is you learning value of pursuing your passion. That is super important because that's something which I learned maybe 2 years ago. And I was pursuing I did my bachelor's in physics, by the way. When I was in my final semester, I thought I don't want to be studying this classic quantum physics, theoretical physics all my life. I want to do something applied. And I came across this course about solar energy on EDX. And that's the thing. That's what I want to do. And even though that, like, as I'm a polymath, even though that has been my passion and I have been following it, there was a void for not having something creative, something related to writing in my life. And I just started going back to that like a year ago. And this is fascinating to me when somebody learned to follow their passion at an early stage of their career, or like really young in their life. And you had some inspiration, but did some of that inspiration come from your family, your parents as well? How did they empower you? And was your upbringing anything related to your upbringing had a role in giving you that uplift to go where you want to
You
go?
know, I got reminded of a TED talk given by Clayton something, a professor from Harvard. He wrote this book called How Will You Measure Your Life, which is one of the bestsellers. I've seen the TED talk, I've not read the book. In the speech, he is addressing Harvard students who are about to graduate. These guys are a few hundred of the very, very best in the world at what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And he starts the speech with something like, you all have proven that you are at the very, very top of a list of people who are extremely good at following what the society wants them to do. Because that's what you are in college. You chase behind grades, you ace exams, you do things that you're told to do. And I remember when I graduated from Columbia, for the first time in a decade, because high school is 4 years, college is 4 years, grad school 2 years. For the first time in a decade, I didn't have a goalpost to chase. No one told me this is what you need to do to get the next gold star. And there was a sense of spaciousness that I felt first. I felt like I just had so much time. I don't know if you felt this way in your first job. After grad school and grinding through those 18 odd months, I felt like I could breathe again. I felt like I came up from underwater. And it was also extremely disorienting in a way. Because now you don't have a goalpost, nothing to chase behind, no one to pat you on the back. So, what are you supposed to do? What? Because we all need some sense of we're going in the right direction in life. And I guess you could say the right direction for some people is a good job, marriage, a kid, a house, a car, etc. But I just didn't think that that's still very, those happen over 10 years. It's not something that happens every week. That's the first year when I just began to read for the sake of pleasure. Until then, I was reading for the sake of reaching an output. I want to ace this exam. Why? Because I want to be a top ranker. Why? No idea. I just want to be a top ranker. So it stops at that second layer of questioning. But now, in that first year, I remember reading 22 books on everything. I read books on writing. I read books on just self help. I read books on design, history. And at any point, if I felt like this wasn't as interesting for me, I would just move on to something else. And so I think, to your question of what made me follow my passion eventually, it's because I spent so much of that year alone. I have been alone for most of my life. And I don't mean lonely. I think there is a difference there. I've also been lonely, but I've spent most of the last 10 years of my adult life living by myself, kind of navigating life on my own. In terms of, there was no one physically around me at all times because I also kept moving cities and states constantly. And I think when you're that much by yourself and you're with your thoughts, you start to pay attention to what's going on in your mind. And so I would journal a lot. I would read a lot. I would just sit and think a lot. I would be in libraries most of the evenings in my first year after graduation, just thinking. And I think that's when you can start to really listen to what's happening in your brain because otherwise it's drowned out by the noise. If you're around people all the time, you don't get to tune into that signal that's going on. So I think partly I should credit my loneliness for eventually following my passion. Um, that's my interpretation. I still can't figure out any inspiration for me back then because I hadn't met Rajesh at that time. I met him in 21, but I had been thinking about quitting for 2 years even before I met Rajesh, who I'm sure we'll talk about.
I can relate to chasing freedom part a little bit. When I was growing up, I had a lot of people around me. We are like big family. I am the eldest of five siblings, and my parents, and nuclear families. We live together, so there were a lot of voices when I was growing up. You have to do this, can do that. I can relate to that part a lot. That when you are on your own, only one voice, only one person to attune to. And that is fascinating. I have been following your journey. A couple of times you mentioned that you were in Montana, a remote town, and that is the meaning of freedom to me. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, hustle bustle of the city, getting whatever you want from the city, and knowing that, okay, now you want quiet and you move to Montana. How is that like, and how is that inspiring your book?
I spent 7 months of last year in a farm. Montana was 4 to 5 months. No, sorry. Montana was 4 months. Chennai was about 2 months. Bangalore was about 2 months. So in total, actually, 8 months. And they were really 8 of the happiest months I've spent in my life. I don't think we were meant to be in places like this. We are in San Francisco right now. There's so much happening outside on the street. I really think this clustering of human beings has caused a lot of chaos. And living like that for 8 months, I wouldn't say that's also the ideal way of living because I was extremely by myself. That's not going to work for everyone. You need to depend on each other for food and just survival. But those 8 months gave me something just absolutely beautiful, which is a sense of peace and solitude. I worked on my novel Thousand Days of Love. I think I wrote the first draft in Chennai, for in Chennai and Bangalore, and then the second draft in Montana, and the third draft again in Montana. Um, I don't think I could have finished the book if not for there. Right now, I'm going through the fifth draft, and I'm unable to write it in SF. It's too distracting. There is so much fear of missing out. Of course, someone could say, well, isn't that just self control? You can choose to be holed up and do the work here. I disagree. I think your environment has a tremendous amount of influence on your daily habits.
I agree. Yeah.
I could feel the difference, Sarah. Like when I was in the farm, I would wake up. There's no noise. It's pitch quiet, which is also not easy for me to sleep in. So I have a fan with me at all times that makes white noise. I wake up and all I hear is sounds of birds or sounds of ducks and chicks and horses and such. I walk outside and it's literally just green. There's nothing in sight. And so I take long walks. I listen to books on my walks. I think a lot quietly. And that is what stimulates the part of your brain that can produce art. At least it can produce, for me, it can produce art. So, yeah, I think of those 8 months very fondly. And I encourage anyone who is serious about their craft, who has the ability to step away like that, because not everyone does, I understand. I think they should. And not just for a vacation, for a weekend or a week. I would say go for a few months.
What even inspired that decision to go for a few months?
The decision itself was inspired by a very bad incident that happened in London. So it wasn't intentional. It was very accidental for me. I was in London for a fellowship that I got into called Faber Academy. It was a paid fellowship. They had 6 months of training you on writing a novel. It was literally for the work I wanted to do. And it was in London. I had gotten the Global Talent Visa, which is kind of like the O1 visa of the US, sorry, UK. And on my second day after landing, I was walking down the street looking for a co working space like this one. And I just remember this tall guy approached me for money, asked me for money. I said, I don't have any money. And 5 seconds later, I remember bleeding. I remember this hoodie that I was wearing, it was just full of blood. And then I realized, oh, okay, it's coming from my nose. It's from me. It's my blood. It's very disorienting when someone assaults you. You don't remember the moment they assault you because you don't expect to be assaulted on the street. But that day was bad. I don't wanna sugarcoat it. My right eye was swollen shut because he had punched me on this side of the face.
I remember your post and your photo.
Yes. And I was so scared for my eyes more than anything else. I felt like nose, it'll be healed, yes, but eyes, what if I can't see again through this side or both sides? Um, yeah, I just remember I was there in the hospital for 8 hours from 2 o'clock until 10 or 11 o'clock in the night. Not because I was going through any surgery or anything, just that it was a public hospital. There weren't enough doctors. So I had to wait 2 hours for every scan that they did. So it took like 2 hours for the first doctor to see me, and then another 2 hours for the second doctor, and then they took me for a CT scan. All of this happened. And by the end of that day, I realized I want to go back to India. So I decided to come back. I still didn't want to write the book in my house, though, in with my parents. I, I think I just needed to be away from civilization for a while I focus on this. So I decided to go to the first farm in Chennai, not thinking it's gonna be my next year living in farms. Just that, hey, let's go to a farm. But because I loved it so much, I went to another farm in Bangalore. And then when I came to the US, also I had to come to the US because there was a travel ban that was about to come into play.
Yeah.
And my lawyers told me, even though India may not be affected and it wasn't affected, just to be safe, come back before March 17th. So I asked a friend whose parents have a farm in Montana, could I stay with them? Thankfully, he said yes. And I stayed there for a few months. But you see how none of this was planned. Every step of the way, I think it was just a choice of let's keep doing this, let's do this. Yeah.
It's you keep saying that this is not intentional, this is not the plan, but to me it is planned because you are constantly thinking about how to make this work, how to make my environment work for me, and you are just following that path. So in a way you're intentionally following your path, and I love that.
That's actually, I was thinking about this just yesterday that the one thing I do feel proud of is I never stay passive for too long. I'm pretty active towards what makes me unhappy. If I'm in a job that makes me unhappy, for a sustained period of time, I would recognize it and I would do something about it. If I'm in a relationship or a friendship that makes me unhappy for too long, I would try to do something to change it. So I actually think if I really trace back to how I got to this moment sitting with you, a lot of it was because of taking chances, even when I'm scared, especially when I'm scared, actually. Someone may see the fact that I quit my job and think that's courageous. I don't think it's courageous. I think I was extremely scared too. It's just that I just didn't stay passive. So it's that state when you're complaining about something, but you don't do anything to change it, and you complain more, and you that's a dangerous state for someone to be in because there's no movement there. Um, and I'm not saying any movement is also good movement. Sometimes you may do things that's irrational or that's reckless for yourself. For example, if you start to speed on highways because you're too frustrated and you're angry, that's not good. But something that feels productive. I send so many cold emails, still send so many cold emails to this day. And most of those are not responded to, but some people respond to it. And that changes the trajectory of what happens in my life. It's happened to me at least 10 times. I can list out the instances.
That reminds me of a video I watched, Priyanka Chopra. She was saying, keep knocking the doors. I kept knocking on the doors to launch myself in Hollywood, and it worked.
Yeah, and
So,
it's 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 nice to sit on a couch and listen to someone talk about this from someone's house, right? The actual act of doing it, it's horrible because I have been knocking on doors of agents for the last few months right now for the book, for Thousand Days of Love. It's only been either rejection or no response so far. And every single time it comes through, maybe it hurts little less, but it hurts.
yeah.
That never goes away. And it chips away some of your confidence. And the way you get it back is by talking to people and hearing someone tell you that there is value in what you've produced. Keep going. Don't stop. And I think that's why, like, what we're doing right now, this podcast that someone's watching, hopefully this is that small nudge for them that, hey, like, you got this. That's why the term self help, it's interesting because the term itself says it's not about watching a video on self help that's going to help you. You have to help yourself. That's why it is literally called self help.
Well,
You have to do the work after watching the video. The video is just a aid for you in the process.
yeah. And yeah, that is super hard. I can imagine, even if it is courageous to leave your job to follow your passion, there must be a fear of uncertainty. Or I remember you talked about speaking to Rajesh about it and having like long sessions with Rajesh. How did he help you moving through that really scary time of your life?
I will say I never talked to Rajesh or I never needed him to convince me to quit my job. I knew I was going to quit. I had resolve on that and conviction on that. What Rajesh helped me with was after quitting, I would freak out a lot. There were days when I would just sit and be paralyzed with anxiety over what am I going to do? I know what I don't want to do, but what am I wanting to do? It's not very clear to me. And to be in that sea of uncertainty and be lost in that sea, I think it's a very hard thing, and very few people can navigate that in a skillful way. I'm still learning to. I can say I'm definitely above average in terms of navigating uncertainty. I've done it at least 4 times now because I've switched my careers 4 times in the last 10 years. But one way to navigate that is to have someone that you can call anytime to freak out to. So Rajesh was that person, is still the person. And anytime I'd call him and start to tell him, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I supposed to do? he'd reassure me that you did the right thing. You will figure this out. And he always has this phrase that he'll tell me that you are extraordinary, Soundarya. You just don't see it. It may take another 2 years to see it, but I'll make sure that you get there. Something like that. I think we all need someone like that to remind us of our own potential because we forget very often what we can do.
So I know that your new novel, Thousand Days of Love, it is heavily inspired by yours and Rajesh's relationship.
Yeah.
I am always curious about your arc, that you went from an engineer to manager, then left that job, then you wrote a book on immigration. Those were even before that you wrote another book
Yeah.
on
My first baby.
yeah, admissions. But all of that was self-help books and non-fiction books mostly.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say self help. They were
Yeah,
educational, but yes.
educational non-fiction books. And your community was built around that.
Yeah.
Everything was built around that. Your stability after you left your job, that came from that community, right?
Absolutely.
And you left that again, and now you're writing the book. I'm really curious.
Why?
Again.
Why?
How? Not why. I know why.
Okay.
How?
How meaning how did I switch from nonfiction to fiction?
No, I know you knew that this is what you want to do, and you knew that I want to write, but leaving the job and then writing your book and building a community, and then you have something of your own, you have your baby. How is, I mean, it's crazy to me because I'm clinging on to some of my babies that are not working for me anymore and want to switch, but it's hard to leave a part of you behind and
Yeah.
to find yourself in another part.
I guess I don't know if I think of it as I'm leaving. For example, Admitted and Unshackled still hold a very special place in my heart because I put hundreds of hours into, maybe even thousands into them. It's more evolution for me. I really enjoy becoming a polymath someday. I was going to say being a, but I'm not. So becoming one someday. And that's also why Rajesh was able to get me so easily because he is one. And so when he saw me, he saw someone who's a younger version of himself, I would like to think. And so, Thousand Days of Love, it's not easy. I'll tell you that though. I want to establish the fact that there have been many days when I've wondered, did I do the right thing by making Thousand Days of Love a fiction, a novel? Because it required me to upskill myself a lot. And I'm still going through that process. I've wondered about that. But I've come to realize regret is not a very useful emotion. It's rather you have to think of, with that information in mind that I had, did I make the right choice? And you almost always do make the right choice with what you knew back then. So I can change Thousand Days of Love into a nonfiction now if I want to. But now I feel that we've come so far. I mean, there is a reason why I chose to write fiction, and it's brought me a lot of joy, and it's improved my skill as a storyteller. So let's finish this. Let's not quit before we fail, because there's a famous quote that says, "Don't quit before you fail," and that's what happens. I think people don't really fail for the most part; they just quit. Like,
Self-rejection.
yeah, you know that famous diagram where someone's digging for gold and he's 1 foot away from actual gold and he gives up and starts walking back? I do think a lot of our lives are like that, where we're so close and then we give up. And sometimes that's the right
There's a
decision.
book about it, The Dip. I've got it, but I haven't read it. But it's very similar concept. That there's growth beyond that the dip, that point where you feel like you're not getting anywhere, but actually that is the growth.
It's like there's local maximas and global maximas. So you might think when you get to a local maxima that this is it. This is my highest of my potential, but there is still a bigger mountain to climb, but you have to come down first.
Yeah.
That's actually a great way to think about this. Is I could have stayed at this local maxima after Unshackled and tried to continue working on that. But I felt like as a writer first, more than anything else, I felt like there's so much more opportunity for me to keep honing my craft if I pick this new project that will push me so much more intellectually, that'll push me creatively. So I decided, and I feel like I'm in that dip right now for sure. I'm still trying to climb this bigger thing. It's been a year and a half of working on this project, and but it shouldn't come easy. Nothing great has ever come easy to anyone out there. Even if they make it look easy, it's because of years of hard work. But I will tell you the interesting thing to talk about is money.
Yeah.
When I introduce myself in Silicon Valley and say I'm an author, and I say that I've self published 2 books, I'm finishing my first novel, people get fascinated. But then the next question is, how are you taking care of yourself? Or how do you make money? Some people are very hesitant to ask that, so I ask for them. And I'm like, I know what you're thinking now that I said this, that you're thinking, how do I make money? So let me just answer it myself. Because in our minds, you either are a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or you're a loser, is how our parents think, not me. Or we think either you have stability in a stable, like, corporate job, or you're a starving artist pursuing your passion, but no money. I would like to think that there is an in between, and I have proven this for myself that I would still say if I look at the money I've made in the last few years, less than 10% have come from book sales, just purely from selling either of my books. Or actually, I'm sorry, admitted I made no money, so it's not even counted. But Unshackled only, I can say it's less than 10%, even lesser, I would say. But the book gave me the foundation to build other things on top of it. So that takes an incredible amount of entrepreneurial skills. It takes every possible skill, like marketing, customer support, operations, sales, pitching to sponsors, raising money. I had to do all of these things to make that happen. So it's kind of an in between, right? I don't have a stable job, but I'm also not spending 100% of time writing only. There's an in between pathway I found where I still get to pursue my passion of being a writer, of telling stories, of writing books. But I'm realistic of the limitations of this pursuit. I don't naively think if I write a great book, people will just, stand around the corner to get it. No, no one gives a shit what you do in this world. There is so much being thrown at people every single day that you have to earn people's care and trust for you. And that's where social media also plays an impact for me. I'm actually the most anti social media person you might find. I don't have the apps on my phone. I don't like to check it on my laptop. But I like to create content. So I still put it out there on a daily basis. But but it's kind of a love-hate relationship I have with social media. I hate so much of it. I think it brings out the worst in people sometimes. We say things that we will never say to each other when we talk like this. We get triggered easily and we waste our times doom scrolling. There's so many problems, which has been covered in many, 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 many movies and books. The love side of the relationship is things like this. You met me. We met because of social media. You saw some video 6, 7 years ago, and at some point we had a call together, and now we're here. Like you, I've met hundreds of people who are now very good friends because of the internet, social media. And it's also brought in immense awareness for my books. I think Unshackled, when I started writing about it, just saying that I'm writing a book called Unshackled, that was the very first time I became a creator on LinkedIn. I still don't not like to use the word influencer. I think it has so much connotation that I don't agree with. But I like to be a creator. And so, my point being, there is this in between path where you can pursue your passion and you can make money and be reasonably sustainable in your life. But to pursue that path, you have to get good at things well beyond your passion. You have to be a good entrepreneur. You have to be willing to be scrappy and resourceful and fast, high bias towards action. And turns out I was able to do that.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, money is obviously with the artist thing. It I don't know why, but as I shared with you, growing up, people told me that you can only be a writer on a side. It cannot be your career. And that is like you making writing your career, but also sustaining yourself. That is inspiration because you kind of overcame that limiting belief that most people have. I know most people have this belief. What were your limiting beliefs when it came to changing careers, especially going from engineering to the artist side of you?
It's it's definitely still a limiting belief for me as well. I think even now, I don't believe just selling my book, my third book, will keep me sustainable. See, there is a future where I could go all out and literally spend every single minute of my day focused on selling this book. Maybe I'll make enough money, actually. Because if I'm putting that much focus and energy on one thing, I think I'd succeed, actually. But it's a question of, do I want to do that? Or do I want to use this opportunity to go beyond writing only and build something around this? I think Unshackled was never just a book, it was a community, it was a book tour, a conference, a company. I don't really know where Thousand Days of Love is going to go. I'm still in that earlier stages. But I think I just come to believe that you have the privilege of not being constrained to one job for the rest of your life, like your mom or dad. My father had the same job for 35 years. And I'm assuming that many of the people listening to this can agree to that. Our parents didn't have the privilege to think about purpose and meaning and happiness and calling. And so when my dad was opposed to me quitting my job, it took him a while to to come to terms with it. I do not blame him one bit. I understand why he feels that way. It's the same as if I had a kid someday and the kid's like, I hate my job, but I want stability, so I'm going to stick with it. That wouldn't make sense to me
Yeah.
because I'm the opposite of that. And I would tell my kid, what? Why do you want to waste this life doing something you hate? Go do something you want. So, and the kid would be like, why are you protesting what I want to do? That's the same dynamic I feel with me and my father, where it doesn't make sense to him. It doesn't make sense to most parents. But yeah, that's the waves of change that we see every few decades.
So what is your limiting belief right now?
Right now, I don't think I'll get a publisher. That's my main one. I think for Thousand Days of Love, within the time frame I have for myself, I don't think I'll get a publisher. I think I might just go with a hybrid publisher, which is a certain term under the publishing industry. It's not, of course, my dream is to get a Penguin or a HarperCollins or a Hachette or Simon and Schuster, one of these big guys. But Yeah, that's my limiting belief. It's sad to hear that, but it's there.
What would the trajectory look like if you got the publisher?
Hmm. There would be a period of high where I feel like I've done it, but it would pass very quickly. I would feel validated that I am a good writer. These guys believe I'm a good writer, but that would pass as well. I That's the thing. When I really think about it from that standpoint, maybe I'd sell more books if I was through a publisher than on my own. I might get more invitations to speak at places. Um, would that change the way I approach the craft? Probably not. I still would want to write the next book, regardless of if I get a publisher or not. You know? Um, yeah, it's a great question.
What's the goal in your mind with Thousand Days of Love? I remember reading so many times that your dream is to get it converted into a movie or something.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know where that came from. Um, since I began writing fiction, I've been paying attention to dialogues on movies and TV series a lot. Because when you're writing fiction, at least my book, it's 70% dialogues. There's so much conversation between people that's happening that I needed to learn how to write good dialogues. So I was obsessed with looking at the screenplay of movies. And so I just along the way felt like, what if I could turn this into a movie? Wouldn't that be fantastic? Um, I've talked to many people in the movie industry in the last year. I've realized that number one, you can actually make a movie. It's not that hard. It depends on do you want to put your own money or not. So it's that difference between self publishing a book and going through Penguin, for example, or going through a hybrid publisher, which is an in between pathway. For a movie, I spoke to a producer who once said, yeah, they like the idea, they like the script. If I'm willing to invest the money to hire a screenplay writer, and then we write a proper screenplay based on the story, and we start approaching production houses and get someone interested, this director would be very interested to produce, like, direct it. So it's just that question of if you want a movie that's going to be $50 million budget, probably very, 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 very hard. If you just want to make a movie, not that hard. I can probably make it in, honestly, $200,000 or $100,000, which is really not that much money. So, yeah, I have the goal, but I will say it is not my priority right now. Right now, my priority is just finishing the book and getting it into the hands of people like you. That would be, that's the goal, right? For any writer.
Yeah.
It's not to get a publisher. That's just a means to an end. I think for a writer, the goal is to, for me as a writer, the goal is to move people through the words I write. Hopefully, make them feel something when they finish my book. That'll change their life.
And that's also what I was curious about. Now that you know me a little more, let's say I read your book, what did you think I would get out of that?
Hmm. It's a great question. Um, I always like to point out to The Fault in Our Stars. Have you read The Fault in Our Stars?
Yeah.
How old were you when you read it?
Very recent, maybe 2, 3 years ago.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
What did you get out of reading The Fault in Our Stars?
I already forgot. Very sad. Yeah, it had a very emotional and sad impact on me that a lot of the times, actually, I think for everybody else, whenever you read a love story, it brings a lot of your personal things out. whatever love relationship, romantic relationships you have been in before. And for me, a lot of my relationships did not work out because love actually was not there. And I did not get to meet that person, or we did not meet each other at the same level. And reading that book, it was always like they are perfect for each other and they understand each other so well. And even if one person is so not independent and so dependent on the other person is like meeting them where they are. And how that disease or the life, they don't have life. Most people don't have love or time or energy or like whatever. They had everything else with each other but not life. That was sad.
What I'm hearing is that the book didn't get you a job. It didn't get you a visa. It didn't get you money. It simply made you feel something. It made you sad and it made you think about your own romantic relationships. Maybe, and I'm going to extrapolate here, it might change the way you interact with someone in the future. I think that's what my hope is for my novel. The novel is not in any way going to help anyone get a job, get money, get visas. It's nothing to do with that. The only goal for me is if you read the book and after closing the book, you still think about it when you interact with someone. If it makes you 1% more compassionate towards yourself or your parents or the people you meet on the internet, that's good enough for me. Um, that's the thing about fiction in general, right? I think of absolutely fiction can also motivate people to get to material gains in their life. I'm sure that's possible. But it's not meant for that. It's not that when I look at, let's say, a painting by Picasso or Van Gogh, I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm simply feeling something. And in that moment, it's captured my attention so deeply. I think that's the power of art in general. And I'm learning it as I'm writing fiction myself, that we've come to a place where it's, well, this city is, especially is notoriously famous for treating people in a very transactional way, where you're constantly pitching your startup idea to try to raise money from someone, where you're trying to one up each other by saying, oh, mine's bigger than yours. I'm Series A, you're Series B, or your Series, whatever is before A, pre-seed. And yeah, it's just a different world for me when I think about the book. I really don't think about it as it gets you something, rather than just that it makes you feel something.
I think I used a very materialistic word by getting something. What I really am curious about, I feel I read a couple of your chapters and I feel that you're putting yourself into the character a lot. What will I learn about Soundarya from the book
Oh,
that I don't
God.
know before?
Okay, this is where there's anxiety for me. There's a lot of nervousness in people reading this book, thinking that the protagonist, whose name is Ria, is me. Because I don't want people to think that. But it's also me in some ways. Yes, I inspired her character a lot from my life and my past. What would you learn about me? I think you'd see Ria struggling with so much in her life. So many little things that come very easy for other people. She overthinks it. She makes it complicated. She struggles. She feels a lot of pain. So maybe that'll give people a window into how much I struggle on. Especially if I think in 2020 and 2021 when I was still at Salesforce and I hadn't quit my job. I struggled a lot internally. That could be one thing. Um, What else would people learn? I'm most excited about people learning the relationship Ria has with this other character named Shri, who is inspired by Rajesh. Um, their relationship is precious. And so when people ask me, what is Rajesh exactly? Is he a mentor? Is he a friend? Is he a, I don't know, professional guide? What is he? But that's the thing, is he's none of that for me. I actually hate using the word mentor for him now, because mentor makes a relationship so reductive. Because when I say mentor, the other person immediately thinks that we have a relationship where we meet once a week and we get on a call and I go to him with my problems and he solves it. But that's not the relationship for me. We have a relationship where I don't want to say I am his, but at least he is my center of gravity. He is my rock that I can rely on no matter what happens. Him, my parents, a few best friends, like, these are people that I just know that I could be the poorest person on earth. I could completely fail in my books and my ventures. I could get into an accident and they'll be there. So he belongs in that category of just this chosen family, maybe is one way to say it. So I'm excited for people to see that relationship and to understand it better.
You can choose not to answer this question. It's just my curiosity. There are so many people that are important in your life that can be your rock. What makes Rajesh different that you decided to write a whole book about his relationship?
It's a great question. Uh, I don't want anyone else who's very important in my life to think that. I mean, I love all the people who are close to me. Uh, the reason I chose to write a book on Rajesh, with Rajesh, for him, is that I read something called Tuesdays with Mori around the time I met Rajesh. Tuesdays with Mori is just a beautiful memoir that Mitch Albom wrote about his teacher Mori, who was dying, and he had 6 months left. And he knew that. So Mitch would meet him every Tuesday and learn about life from a person who was dying. It's just a 110-page book, really short. But when I read it, I just saw so much of Rajesh and Mori, and Mori and Rajesh. They both had this unbelievable appetite for joy and just to experience life to the fullest. Even though they were going through unimaginable pain, physical pain. I don't mean mental pain, but actual physical pain that you can't just ignore. Because Rajesh is diagnosed with Parkinson's and he was diagnosed more than 10 years ago. So when I met him, he was broken in terms of his body. Um Obviously he couldn't drive a car. He wouldn't go outside of his house. He sometimes couldn't even eat on his own, and his wife had to feed him. He he went through a lot, let's just say. He was paralyzed for an hour a day. It just, people cannot imagine what it's like to live like that. And I've seen it. Um, and yet, he was the happiest person I knew. And I don't mean happy in the sense of he's jumping up and down happy, but just the way he would speak to me and to people, it would exude happiness. It would exude joy. And it was so infectious that you can't be sad around him. And it's not some toxic positivity bullshit either. He genuinely has this love for life.
I know, I spoke to him once.
You spoke to him once. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, he's going to be watching this, by the way. So, he's going to be very happy. So, I think when you meet someone like that, they break a pattern of the world. So, you're used to meeting, daily people, normal people who go through ups and downs, and then you meet him, and you're like, something is going on. Either he is the biggest con artist in the world who fakes all the time, or this is possible. It's possible to be like this. I couldn't believe it. And so it was that, plus the fact that we've talked every day for the last 4.5 years since we met, plus the fact that he got me and he helped me in so many ways. I think all of this together kind of made me realize that there's so much richness in this relationship that we have. It deserves to be written in a book. So, this isn't to say that I love Rajesh more than someone else who's important to me, as much as I think we had such a unique bond that I hadn't had with anyone that I'd met in my life. And I've met thousands of people, right? That I couldn't just ignore and consider this to be a normal thing. It's not normal. I still don't, I mean, right now it feels very normal because I've known him for so long. So it just feels like it's a part of life. But when I tell people about him, I can feel the ears kind of perk up. And people are like, oh, okay, what is this exactly? So,
Is the book just your perspective about the relationship, or you're also getting some input from Rajesh?
well, I should just repeat again and again that the book is a novel, it's fiction. I have made up so many things that happen. No, no. I am straddling a very thin line of inspired by some real life people and events, but it's actually fictional. So I'm going to answer these questions for the rest of my life, I know. No, Rajesh had no input on the story itself, I would say. There were times when I would call him to tell him that I'm stuck somewhere, etc. But it was my story that I made up. The people who had input were my book coach. I had hired this book coach named Hassan Kuba from the UK who read the first, second, and third versions to give feedback. He shaped it. I just hired another editor named Nathan Bransford who used to work as an agent before. And he has done a very in depth edit of my fourth draft. So these people had a lot more with the story itself, and a few others who I got feedback from as friends. But the perspective of the novel, it's written from Ria's perspective, but I really, really wanted all the other characters to have their own character and uniqueness as well. So there are many instances in the book where I made sure that Ria was wrong and the other people who were saying something, they had a chance to explain their side. Because that's what's interesting, right? You don't want to read a story where the protagonist is right all the time
Yeah.
and everyone else is wrong. Boring. We want spice and drama and conflict. And in fact, my editor thinks that I need to add more conflict now. He's like, it's still too nice. There has to be a lot more fights happening. So I'm going to have to make up some more fights. I'll tell you, one of the biggest differences between the novel and real life is in the novel, I'm going to have Ria and Shri have conflicts. But in real life, Rajesh and I have really never had a conflict. I think once he said something that I didn't like, and then it kind of pissed me off a little bit, but I told him and he apologized. And another time he told me something that he didn't like that I did, and I apologized. That's it.
Yeah.
In the 4,000, 5,000 conversations we've had, it's been two conflicts, like very minor. But I have to make some stuff up in the book. It'll be fun.
Thank you so much for so deeply sharing your journey
Thank
with
you.
me. And I really enjoyed speaking to you. I have one last question. If today you were to sit with Soundarya from 10 years ago, or the very first time when you had a conflict that I need to leave this and start my new life, if you were to sit with that version of yourself today, what would you say to her?
10 years ago, I was 19. I was in my second or third year of undergrad. I was obsessed with grades and doing well in exams and such. I don't know. I think I would just tell her that, hey, don't just think about the next 1 year of your life. Really, really think hard about what you'd want to have been proud of when you're 50 years old or 80 years old. Because a lot of the things that we chase, they disappear so quickly when we look at life from that lens. It's a that long-term lens versus a short-term lens, right? Lately, I've been asking the question to myself of what would your 50-year-old self want you to do? And when I ask that question, it's very clear to me what the answer is. It's to always choose the right path and not the easier path. Okay, sorry, not always, but for the most part, choose the right path and not just the easier path. Because sometimes you have to choose the easier path for something that's very urgent right now. Like if my dad needed a surgery and I had no money, I'm not going to quit my job and try to write a book. You know, there are some things that you have to take into account. But for the most part, I think I would tell her to choose the harder path.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for your book
Thank
and
you.
so many best wishes. I hope you get all the happiness, all the joy out of this journey and all the goals that you want to achieve. I will be cheering for you and waiting for the book. I want to read it as soon as it's out.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I had such an amazing conversation, and I keep coming back to this simple idea which Soundarya mentioned in very beginning of the podcast, that she did not know exactly what she wanted to do. She just knew what she did not want to do. So she kept on removing those distractions and kept on following her intuition. And she did not wait to feel ready. She just started creating the community, the book, and her story comes together so beautifully. So, my conclusion, or something that I'm realizing right now, because this is also something that I'm struggling so much, that I keep thinking about what could be my niche and how to distill my ideas into something that is more relatable or that should make sense. But what if nothing makes sense and I just do it, or you just do it because you want to do it? What if the clarity we are seeking is on the other side of beginning something that we keep delaying? I'll leave you with that thought.